Yo, everybody, it's the Override, and I'm ready to bring the pain for you this week on another regular episode. No sports needed. We got the messenger from the VGM Journey on right now. Introduce yourself, Alex. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I got this shirt yesterday, and one of my DJ buddies got it. And the minute I saw it, I was like, okay, I got to have that shirt. And I actually won it last week. And so I was like, hey, it's free now. I'm gonna take it. So, okay, so let's get right into it. What brought us together actually was me running across your show after seeing that you were from Erie like myself, and that you loved doing video game music and that you had a show. So of course, I didn't catch the show when it first came out. I was a late bloomer, but from there, of course, I've I've definitely been through your catalog plenty of times. So tell us about where it all started for you.
I think it really just stemmed from my lifelong love for video game music. And I don't know, I just kind of found like a lot of other video game music podcasts and was really enjoying what they were doing. And I don't know, I just felt like it was something that I was able to do. And like I kind of have my own voice for
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. So I think that's
Okay.
really just where that all stems from.
Yeah. I mean, that's what really took it. It was really how committed you are to your episodes and the way that you actually portray them, talk about them. You always give all introductions, composers. You do the necessary due diligence to make sure that everybody gets credit for everything that you play on your shows. It is a very hard process as I've listened to other people's shows, and sometimes they can't really do a lot of shows every month because of how much digging you have to do. It's pretty because I've done it, and then I started doing it, and when I did my top 50 Nest songs, I was like, oh, okay, that took me a while, and I didn't even get to mention everybody, nor alone type it all into all my notes with the stamps like you guys do. You guys are awesome, man. Seriously.
Oh, thank you for the kind words. Yeah, it's a big passion project for myself. It's
It's good times. It's good times. So, you know, going back to it, and of course, I've heard this. So, a lot of my people, a lot of my sport people, they don't really know. But tell us what system was the first system that you is your most memorable system. There's a lot of people say they have the best systems, but then when you go back and you look at everything that you do, it kind of just always goes back to that system that really made a mark on your life. What was that one?
see that's a really tough question for me to answer because I don't know. It's like children, like kind
Okay.
of picking like who's your favorite kid. It's like I don't know.
Yeah,
I love all my kids. Yeah,
exactly.
but I think for the pick one that I would say is like real special to me would be the Super Nintendo. I mean, that
Mhm.
was the first system that I've ever played, ever had, and I think
Nice.
that's where a lot of that love started with was
Oh
with
man.
the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, you were spoiled from the go, seriously, because I had to put up with no sounds in the Atari games. And one thing I don't know if you actually are familiar with this, when the Jaguar came out, they had like one of the shooter games. I can't even remember it offhand because it was definitely I don't remember it because I had no music in it. No music. I started and my buddies are laughing at me, and I'm like, oh, I mean, let's give the Jaguar a chance, guys. And we're like, okay, where's the music? So we go into the options. There's no music for the game. It's a shooting game. How do you have no music to a shooting game? Like, that's why it's not a memorable system for me. I think even the Virtual Boy had music at some point.
Oh yeah,
So
oh yeah.
it just, for me, of course, I started out with Atari 2600, not really much music, more so sounds, crashes, burns, or whatever, eh, swinging across the rope, pitfall, dun, 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 stuff like that. That's what really got it. Nintendo really turned it over for me. And I think what really turned it for me was, of course, it was when I finally got the Nintendo. Now, I mind you, I had all these games, but when I finally got the Nintendo and I bought it with my paperboy money, it was Ninja Gaiden 2, it was Mega Man 2, and it was Iron Sword Wizards and Warriors 2 with Fabio on the front. golden locks. That's really what it did. And it was the first time I think ever that I really noticed video game music, and it definitely was Mega Man 2. And I was on Bubble Man's board, and I could keep hearing the music talk to me, going blue, red, and C, blue, red, and C. And I don't know why. It does makes no sense. So the minute I said it to my friends, they heard it too. And I'm like, okay, so I'm not crazy. Like, other people have heard this. And it kind of spawned everything that kind of went from there into the music. And then, of course, the Nintendo came out. And what was some of your first games for that, if you can recall?
Uh, Definitely games like Super Mario World and Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. I mean, I know they're like the big, like obvious, classics, but
Yeah.
just like everybody else, like yeah, I had those games too.
Yeah. It's I think like so when you're talking about that, it's like finding a game like when I played this game for the Nintendo called Eight Eyes, it was a side scroller and a lot of the music, a lot of the boards are set like practically in England. So it's like France. So every board gets like this distorted kind of like or song kind of to what that region would be like. So a lot of it was like in a way symphonic and worked in, but it was slow music. Nothing ever was really fast paced in that music. And so it was kind of like a different, it was eerie because you were exploring mostly mansions looking for these little cubes and everything. And if your friend was over, you could pick up the second controller and the second person could be the bird. Because if you didn't have a second person, you actually had to take control of the bird with that controller and do a lot of the puzzles in the game. So
Hmm.
it was hard. It was a pretty cool game. So, that wasn't one game that was really like iconic in a lot of sense, but what it did for me was it provided that like dark, eerie adventure and a little two-player action to it. Because to me, that's always been one thing that's always been prevalent with me. And one thing my one friend said to me, he said, we always talk about all these great single-player games when we're home alone, but it's really the games that are multiplayer that bring a lot of us together. So, do you have any memories of any multiplayer games when you were growing up that might have did that for you?
I think later on with like the Nintendo GameCube and like the Nintendo Wii, like especially with the Wii, I mean it was a
Hmm.
lot more like, hey, I actually like got my family to like, play the games and stuff. I mean,
Hmm.
Wii Sports Bowling, I mean, that was like the go-to, game to
Yeah,
play.
that was awesome. Have you bowled a 300 in that?
I have not.
Oh,
I've come close, but never
I have.
300.
I've got it quite a few times. It pissed the wife off a few times because there'd always be like I had this stupid little flick I would always do, and either that flick was on that night or it was off. And I didn't get a 300 every night. This isn't like I was just always going to get a 300, but it was one of those things to that. The boxing was fun too, but it just really, like you said, it came back to like the batting for baseball, and then really just Wii bowling. Wii bowling was just out of this world fun.
Couldn't really get into the golf or tennis all that much, but
Hmm.
yeah, I think boxing was fun,
Oh yeah, yeah.
but I think baseball and bowling, I think that's just where that was.
The
Oh,
mechanics. That's what I gotta say. The mechanics. It was. I think it displayed that, and I think that's what also ultimately hurt that system too. Because I can't like. So I try to go back. I have all the Metroid Primes. So I try to go
oh,
back and play Metroid Prime 3 now. And I'm like in the middle of the game. So I got the grappling beam and you got to swing. You got to whoop and you got to do a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really, I guess I could probably restart the game, relearn the controllers. And I'm sitting there playing it and I'm getting beat up by, aliens. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have to put a lot more time into this game if I ever want to beat the third one. But I know since then they've released it for the Switch and you can actually just use the controller. So much easier. So much easy. So, I mean, yeah, you brought up a good point earlier. You're not going to really jump to all those great games. Because immediately when you go Super Nintendo, you're going to go Final Fantasy VI, you're going to go Chrono Trigger, you go Earthbound, you're going to name all these other games that have great songs and that. And you could even go back to the Mega Man series in that. But, a lot of people overlooked like how hard Contra was. They would beat it on easy. That's Contra 3, the Alien Wars. And at the same time, there was only me and my one buddy were the only two people that could even beat that game on hard with no game genie or anything. And that wasn't easy. That was hard. Do you ever have a game like that was kind of elusive?
Nothing's really coming to mind.
Like,
Um,
the kind of game that gave you a good railing, like Battletoads at first take. You thought you were cool, and you got to the third board and you're like, oh, this is different.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah.
That
Um,
game, that game was crazy for me. But go on, tell us about it. What do you got?
there's actually now that I'm thinking about it, there's like a lesser known Super Nintendo game that I think like the first couple levels I think is pretty easy, but then like all of a sudden there's like a big difficulty spike, and it's actually a game called Plock, which that has a very amazing soundtrack. I definitely recommend people to check that out.
That is right. I remember you played that, the Plock soundtrack, and that was actually your little thing. And to go on that, I've never played that game. I seen it, I didn't play it. Like, just never rented it, or just never saw it on the buy $5 bin or something like that. It was just something that just never came my way, honestly. So what was the game like? Like, did it play like ants or something, or Worms 3D, Armageddon? Like, what was it all like?
It's just your typical side scroller platformer type deal. I I don't know. There's like a lot of like little collectibles and stuff, but it's mainly just from one of those like start to finish, type
Okay.
of platformers.
Okay. Yeah, I had a few of those. So like I played like Wise 3 the one time. And I found this like because so one thing we've talked about in your chat. So it just so everybody knows, the messenger has the VGM Journey Discord. And when you get part of that, you get a bunch of VGM masters. They literally all they do is post all their video game episodes in this, talk video game music, talk video games. So all of you, we'll make sure that we have all that information in the show notes at the end for the information. So we don't have to really talk too much about it a little bit, but it'll be there. But if you make it there, man, there's just so much going on in that. But this is part of it. It's part of that whole kind of, community that the video game music creates and puts together. And that's one of the ideas that you like. It's just bringing that everybody together to see everybody's difference. Like my recent, which role playing game was the best. Everybody has different answers, and nobody's wrong, because it's what game you experienced at what part of your life that may mean the most to you. Like for me, it's really The Secret of Mana, Chrono Trigger, and Final Fantasy VI. Playing those three games like practically back to back during that era was like ungodly for me. So it's really hard to replace that. Something 7 couldn't do, something Breath of Fire 3, like playing Final Fantasy 7, Breath of Fire 3, and then going down that kind of row with the PlayStation 2, and jumping into that just never replaced those three for me, because I think that's why those three are always like a masterpiece in my mind, even though I do hate on Chrono Trigger a lot.
See, I
So,
always have this thing of not really being much of an RPG fan, even
mhm,
though I do play some RPGs here and there.
mhm.
Um, so I know when they see, I don't remember who shot that question around. Was that you?
Yeah, it was me. I started it up.
Okay, okay. And I was thinking like, okay, I do like Pokemon. Pokemon's good.
Hmm.
I think the answer I wound up giving was Super Mario RPG. I mean, I love that game.
Yeah.
And I
I,
also like the Fallout series as well.
nice, nice. That's something I never got. I actually have that for the computer. Like for computer games, I have all the games of that era, like Black and White, and then Fallout 2. And I even at one point I bought Baldur's Gate 2, but I took that back. They gave me a full credit, and I bought some other computer game. I think I bought Rune. It's like a Viking game, first person perspective. Pretty cool. You get different weapons. Not really a level monitoring system. Plays more like Doom, So that's what it was. But Rune, coolest little thing too, because computer games always had those cool little foldouts. So it has like a 3D case, so you could like feel it, and it's this like huge Death Warrior, barbarian warrior Nordic guy like this, and he's got his abs, and he's got a big helmet on with horns and a big axe, and you're just like, wow. And then you open it up and you fold it out, and you get the install disc, and that really put together a lot for me too. Was like during that era of my life, Diablo 2 era of my life, and Star Wars Galaxies era of my life. It was all computers. So I kind of strayed away a little bit during leading into the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era. I didn't even really get a PlayStation 2 for a while because I was so into computers. So for me, that kind of filled that gap. But I had other systems, of course, Dreamcast and stuff. Did you have any of those systems through there?
For a long while, I've just been like just a big Nintendo fanboy. I never like I would get like every system, but I never really like branched out of the Nintendo stuff until the 360 era when I got an Xbox 360 and
Mhm.
really really liked it.
Oh
And
yeah.
then I think to this day I've just been kind of I'll get the Nintendo system and then I'll get
Mhm.
like Xbox as well.
Yep. You got it. Because I think that's just the way you either got to pick Xbox or PlayStation, or you got to have both. But you also always have to have a Nintendo system too, because that's what I tried to tell my friends. They just, after they were like, Nintendo's kitty, blah, blah, blah. But then that's why that comment I said earlier, like when we all got together, we were playing GoldenEye. We were playing No Mercy. We were playing WrestleMania 2000, Mario Kart 64. This is what we did. You got, and that was the first system that was just like, like other than like the Dreamcast stuff where you just had the extra controls. You have to go buy a 50, 60, $100 peripheral to add on. Like, come on, man. We're all kids here. We can't got that much money.
Well, the N64, I mean, it was a really good multiplayer system. I mean,
Yeah.
just like a lot of the games that you brought up, and I will even include the Mario Party games. I mean, they
Oh,
are a lot of fun to play with friends.
yo, yeah. Yeah. I at one point thought me and my wife could take anybody out in Party 8. And I like we literally had, I think it was Koopa's Boardwalk, that's the water board. And it's practically the first one. I'm pretty, yep, that was Mario Party 8. And we would just get that down and we would just go around. And then you get to go ride the dolphin to the little area and you get those extra stars. But we would play with the computer on hard. So, that was like, you could definitely tell that the game was cheating. You're
Oh
like, there's
yeah.
no way it's going to roll like a 21. And they would roll like the 3 6s and get the double up and roll more. And I'm like, come on, man. Take your coins. But Mario Party's truly, again, just how much fun you could have with that. And another game going back to the Wii for a second too. You know, WarioWare, man. Smooth
Oh yeah.
moves. Oh man. Smooth Moves is one of the best games probably ever created. Honestly, it's up there. I'm not saying it's the best, but you know what I mean. So you have memories, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was a very early Wii game that we kind of jumped on right away. The all the single player stuff, it was pretty good. I mean, it was your
Mhm.
typical WarioWare stuff. It was never bad, but the multiplayer though, that was on a whole nother level.
That's what made it. It was just that, and then they released that other one just before this latest one that they released, the newest one, which looks like they went back to the original formula that worked. Because I don't really like messing around with the cursor. A lot of people do like the cursor little thing, but I like that they went back to like the motion stuff so that way you could kind of play it that way as well too. I just it's definitely one that's on my radar right now, as is like even the Mario, because we have up to Mario Party 10. So we have that. I don't have the Mario Party Superstars, or yeah, I think that's what it was called, right? The
Yeah.
Superstars, the latest one with all the remixes. because I know you did a few shows of some of the musics from there, the VGM from there, and I just it would always go back to 8, 9. We played a lot, but we played a lot of 10. But no matter what, it was always the Mario Party 8 for us, and it was just that really linear board of Koopa's Boardwalk, and it just really resonated with us. So for that, yeah, it's something that we want that we get to play. And outside of that, me and the wife play a lot of questionnaire games, and we play this game. We actually bought two forms of it. It's called Knowledge is Power, and then they released another one called Knowledge is Power Decades. If you've never played this game, it's we have it for the PlayStation 4/5 because well, I've upgraded, so I have them both on my PlayStation 5. If you've never played this game, you got to play this with your girl.
I'm actually not at all familiar with that.
It's an indie game. It's just called Knowledge is Power. So practically, to give it a quick, if nobody else knows about this, it's got the host set up. So every block has three questions, and then between each block, so there's three blocks leading up to the end. So between each block, you get like this like picket game. So it'll say drag the villain to the franchise. So you have to use your phone, right? So it'll hook up to your phone and you'll get all the questions on your phone and it'll read it off and you'll say, okay, which superhero wears a red hat with an M on it, right? And you'll look down, it's a timing game, boom, hit Mario, right? Well, other people can throw little jokes on you, so they can throw ice on you. And if you're playing with more than three people, you can get three attacks put on you. So you can get gloop, which means you have to wipe away your screen to see the answers. Ice, you can see it, but you got to keep hitting it. And then they have these bombles, they have word. And as they move up to legends, or not legends, decades. So decades starts out 80s, 90s, thousands, and tens. Those are the four decades it focuses on. So you all pick one, and each game, everybody gets one power pick so that you automatically know you're going to get that. So then it'll give you topics, TV, superheroes, sports, and then comics. And that door in both games takes you down a wormhole. You will never understand what is happening. I've
Hmm.
ended up in some classical music slash book wars, and I'm looking at my wife, and we're at the end of this game, and we got like 800 points each. I'm like, oh. And other ones, you get like 2,200 points. It's really cool, man. You got to check it out.
I'll definitely check that out. That does sound pretty cool.
You will have a good time with it. At the end of every game, you get like a stupid little fact. So
Hmm.
that's it. So with the evolution of gaming and with all the real instrumentals and everything that's going on, like it all started with the CD based gaming and Final Fantasy VII being so orchestrated. I mean, we all got there. And when we first heard Seth Ross music, I was like, fighting that battle, I couldn't believe it went that deep. But I had remembered that six, Dancing Mad was also just as deep as well, just not done like that. I know this answer, but do you have a personal favorite of any of the video game soundboards? Is it synthesizer? Do you still respect that old school? Is it still the chips that the Super Nintendo used? What is it? I didn't say all my questions would be easy. I'm good that one
Oh
easy.
man, it's just like the children's thing. It's hard to pick. It's hard to pick a favorite. Sometimes it's just whatever I'm in the mood for.
Yeah.
I guess I just have a real soft spot for just the chip tune stuff. I mean, what they were doing on the NES and the Game Boy and all
Hmm.
that, like, and to have it sound like as good as it is. I mean, it is very impressive.
Yeah. I gotta give that up. Actually, one time I called Nintendo and I somehow didn't get charged a lot for this phone call, but this phone call ended up being a little bit money on it. I was talking to the dude about like Zelda 3 and how they were using real rain and everything. So for me, I think honestly one of the best blends of all the worlds, it comes back to that Super Nintendo.
Oh
Because
yeah.
it just I had a system like an actual like I had a Fisher 24 change CD thing hooked up, so I had some big speakers, and I remember when that Castlevania 4 theme hit, and I was like, whoa, that was a whole nother world. So staying on kind of the music soundtrack, what recent has come out that you could say has been one of your more favorable, enjoyable games with VGM music just in general, that may have surprised you? So let's say like an Octopath Traveler, that's kind of an easy pick. It's going to have good RPG music, but something around that lines, or anything else, maybe an action game that you might have purchased recently that you were like, this ain't bad. I mean, for
Well,
me, it's Elden Ring, but go on.
I think recently I've been watching my fiance play this game called Dave the Diver. It's got a very chill, I guess synthy kind of soundtrack
Okay.
to it. I don't know. I've been really enjoying that. Um, I'm sure there's probably like five other things that I think I played recently, but I'm just like not really
Yeah, he just hits
thinking
it.
of it.
He gets in a block. That's what happens when you get these questions. I mean, going back, I'm a Zerger. So if I'm, as you know, we talked many times. If I'm playing a game, I'm playing that game. So like right now, it's Diablo 4, and it's sprinkling in a little bit of Elden Ring. But really, between those two games, I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy 1, and I don't know why. And I'm part of these JRPG groups, and they're just like, it's just not dateable, and it's just not, it doesn't hold up to the standards of today. And I'm like, but I don't have the standards of today. I have the standards of yesterday. And that linear format, it provides so much fun just going back to it, even if it doesn't have the peninsula power. Just hearing that music again reprised, it's, to me, it's just butter to the ears. It's easy to hear, it takes you back. And that's what music does for it. And that's what, like, when I'm listening to your episodes, that's what I always get. Like, exactly when you pulled out that Castlevania, because you could have pulled any of the songs out, but it's when you pull those songs out, it takes me back to the beginning of that game. That every step of that game, when I play Castlevania 4, I walk through that entire game, and the music never really stops. So I can envision where I'm at that point of the game when those beats are hitting. It's sickening. That's why I love that game so much.
I think just hearing that actually really brings like a big smile to my face. I mean, it's stuff like that. I guess it's just kind of part of like the mission of my show.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to bring people back to, a different time, or even introduce something new to
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. That's huge, because I may have played every game. I may have millions of games upstairs, and I can tell you there's a ton of computer games I've never opened. That game, Black and White, I talk about, that's a strategy game from like the mid 90s. I've never opened that game. I paid $60 for that game, $70. Why did I buy that game? I never played it. I ended up playing Diablo 2. And and, and I was playing some cheesy game called Invictus, which is a strategy game, but you could get some Greek gods on your side. And at the end of the game, you get like four of them. So I'd always start out with Hercules and Perseus, because those are always my guys, Clash of the Titan kind of dude. And so those were kind of the games, but those games right there, and just all, like you said, just going back and just remembering those moments and really embracing it. But that's what I played those games. You guys and everybody in your crew, the professor, Hammock. And so I thought it was funny that Professor called out Hammock on his latest podcast. That was funny. I was like, oh, okay, okay. So yeah, to me, I looked at it and I'm like, this is exactly it. It just spoke to me. And that's what I like to see when you talk about things like that. Tell me a little bit about like that whole experience too, because y'all have like a nice little fun community where y'all just you're all on each other's shows and things like that.
Oh man, it is it it really is something special. I think over the years I've made a lot of connections to a lot of really cool people, and getting to hear their stories, and then them listening to mine. And um I think the a lot of the collaborating, like I think it's been a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, the VGM Masters series that you guys do, that's amazing. Because I've only just listened to your show, so now that I'm exploring other people's show, I'm going through that time period with them that I already went through with you. It's like it's it's like going back. It to me, it's again, it's going back. And Professor Tom had this show where he had a lot of Persona, and I have never played any of the Persona games because I think when you brought up the Xbox 360, that was a lot of Call of Duty time in my life, a little
Oh
bit of
yeah.
Diablo 3, games like that. And I mean, even I think I was playing Forza a lot during that time, a few Need for Speeds, and of course Madden's. But that was all like during that stuff. And during that time, I want to say like all the PlayStation people were playing the games like the Personas and things like that. So I was just missing out. I wasn't really into an RPG world other than me maybe loading up my computer again and playing Diablo 2 or rehashing one of my old systems, and just playing that because I got all that stuff. Yeah, and for me, it's like if I can play it on my Nintendo Wii U, I'd rather play it on that rather than fire up one of my old systems. But at the same time, it just having that old school controller in your hand is a whole different experience.
Yeah, they definitely I think like a lot of these other shows, um they have kind of like uh I guess shown me stuff that I probably wouldn't have like known otherwise, or
Mm-hmm.
like it would like kind of lead me down like a certain path, I guess. And I mean, I guess like Professor Tom and his show, like, yeah, he plays a lot of that Persona music, and it's like those are games I've never played,
Mm-hmm.
and so I wouldn't even really think to like look there for music, but he's playing this stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, this stuff's really good. I definitely want to
Mm-hmm.
check this out.
Yeah, yeah. It puts it helps you experience. You're like, okay, that does sound like some menu music or something like that. And then he gets those one like or like when you like the way you guys all start your song your episodes off. You're sitting there for a few seconds, and then boom, you get through the thing, and you bam, right there, song, and you're still like, oh yeah, man, this is great. And it just gets you into the whole mood of the whole episode, and then from there it just always flourishes. And that's exactly what it is. It's a bunch of people, it's a community that I never knew, because like, believe me, you guys be spitting names that I would probably chop up. I got problems with football players names right now sometimes. You guys are out there like Yoshinu Watazatse, and I'm like, dang, he said that without a breath. And I'm like, I might have to look at something, but like, hold on, let me look up. Okay, I got it now.
I
Or
will say early on, like I struggled bad with these Japanese names. I'll be like, oh, Yuzo Koshiro? What?
Tasha Marito. It's like, huh? And then when you guys say them, it's like, yeah, I remember them. It's almost like for me too, I'm bad with bands. For some reason, that's like my bad thing. So like I won't be able to name like hardly any video game composer. Like maybe a few if I get lucky or just have the right mind of thought. But like I'm like that with bands too. Of course, like outside of like Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses. I mean, we all know most of those people. And like rap groups usually just targeted the rap name, but it was really metal bands a lot. You didn't know their names unless you did it. You didn't have the internet to look up. And if you didn't buy those tapes or CDs because well, you just didn't have enough money to buy everything back then you just didn't get it. You didn't know who it was. So to like see that and see you guys do that, that's great, especially yourself, because you literally are in Erie. You're the only one that really goes deep into this music. It's your genre, it's your platform. So that's why it's like every time when podcast of the year comes around, I definitely was like, I gotta vote for myself. But if there was anybody else I'd vote for, it's always yours because it's the one podcast of everybody's podcast that really relates to me the most, all utmost of everything that I do in life. It's all video game related. That's why I even have like things like this. Like
Ooh.
why do I have that?
Well, I feel honored that, you kind of considered my show for that, even though, I mean, yeah, you kind of had to pick your own show. I mean, come on.
You gotta. But no, it's just the way it is. I mean, and honestly, it does it's a fun little contest that everybody has. And the whole voting process, whatever that may be, it's just fun to throw it out there and let other people know. Cause honestly, all these people go down, then when they get to the podcast and you see that how many of us podcasts in Erie are trying to do our things, and we all do separate stuff. Like a lot of my stuff, of course, is exclusive to Dr. Roto. I can't a lot of my sports stuff hits there, is there first, and then I can throw out on my platforms. But without that platform, I would just still be what I would be doing for free for that. That's just it. But at least, with him and under his umbrella and the friendship that I've been able to learn, go through and accept, like that's how I met him. I was just a caller, called in, acted crazy. And that's where they gave me, they'd say, hey, for 60 seconds, you get to bring the pain, Rob. So for 60 seconds, they would let me bring the pain on a Sirius XM fantasy. And there was some wild, wild, wild moments in that, so that's really where it all came from. So to see like you have that same support outside of Erie, I have this support outside of Erie, and we get what we can in Erie, and it makes everything really nice. But I will say, you're one of the most avid posters and definitely persons that always try to get the Erie podcasters together, and nobody ever gets together.
Yeah. I, I've tried for a couple years now on
Yeah.
that. I mean, sometimes I'll talk to John Duckworth of
Yep.
Idiotville,
Yep.
every once in a while, but other than that, like, no, nobody. It just seems like nobody's really interested in like a meetup or
Yeah.
some kind of collaboration or something.
It's weird. It's like the dude that I no knock on it. I loved it, but it was like literally a classic response. He was like, yeah, I don't really like these things, so I'm just gonna remove myself. He's like, but if anybody wants to get a hold of me, I'm like, yeah, it's cool. It's like it was funny. Like I saw that. I was like, yeah, I wonder how many else people did it, but it's just one of those things. We're coming up against the time, but we could definitely finish this out. But that to me, I think is the one core thing that it brings everybody together. And one day maybe that will happen. But if not, we have meetings like this. We have, when everybody being busy, we can get together and get a good meeting together, or collab with maybe Idiotville and do like a whole video game over booze kind of talk, something
Oh
like
yeah.
that. That's fine. But for right now, I'm definitely down for all this. And I'm definitely, anytime you want to have me on your show and do and just straight play music and set up, I am more than honored to do that as well too. I am honored also that you are a guest on Bring the Pain, because I don't get out of the sports book many often. So when I do, these podcasts really, they mean the most to me, because I do the same stuff all the time. So it's great to talk to other people.
Man, I was actually like half prepared to maybe talk a little bit of hockey, but man, I just don't have the time right now.
Yeah, they only give us so much. I mean, they want me to pay for pro, but
Oh,
yeah, but hey, you know what? That's just another podcast for another time, since we had to break the ice with this,
oh yeah.
video game. So real quick, rattle off all your places that you can find you.
You can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. We're even on this new site called TerraPlayer, where there's like a bunch of video game podcasts on that. It's a real good site. And you can also follow the show on X at VGM Journey.